Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are undertaking, well, a really profound exploration. We're looking into the divine feminine principle.
Yeah, it's this energy that feels like it's really stirring things up now, in the collective consciousness.
Exactly. And it seems to be actively reshaping how we even define power. So our mission today is to kind of unpack the core attributes of the feminine.
Her consciousness, her approach to value.
Right, and her methods of manifestation. We'll do this by studying the distinct personality characteristics of the great goddess archetypes.
We're calling them the Daughters of Goddess. And they're fascinating because they act almost like personalized mentors for spiritual awakening.
Okay, so Daughters of Goddess, and this is a big synthesis, isn't it? You mentioned the source.
Oh, yeah, it's massive. We've pulled together wisdom from, well, all over. Mystical lineages across the globe, Vedic, Greek, Egyptian, even Gnostic traditions.
Wow.
The goal was to find the common threads, the underlying consensus about what feminine power and consciousness actually are.
So less about ancient history, more about activation.
Exactly. It's much more about activation, understanding how these archetypes are meant to be activated within you right here, right now.
Okay, let's unpack this immediately then,
Yeah.
because the core identity you mentioned, the divine feminine.
Yeah.
It sounds radically simple, but also utterly transformative.
It really is.
So what is the fundamental core of this consciousness?
Okay, well, it boils down to this. The fundamental core is the power to know and choose what we value.
Know and choose what we value.
Yes, it's an internal thing, sovereign. A private act, almost. The feminine principle, and this is regardless of physical gender.
Right, important distinction.
It holds the intuitive authority, the ability to just declare this is what is true for me, this is what matters.
That completely reframes power, doesn't it? Away
Yeah.
from external force or controlling others.
Exactly. True authority comes from that deep inner conviction about your values, what you hold dear.
Not from, climbing some ladder, winning some fight.
Precisely. And once that internal choice is made, then the masculine principle within us, that structure, that action, that ability to assert outward, it's basically compelled to honor that knowing. The feminine chooses the direction, the masculine builds the road.
I like that analogy. The feminine chooses, the masculine builds.
Yeah, the relationship is based on honoring that internal truth, not just chasing outward achievement.
I appreciate that distinction. And it leads us naturally into this idea of heart-centered living, right? If our values come from this intuitive core, how do we stop our minds, our very logical modern minds, from just steamrolling over it?
Ah, that's the crux of it, isn't it? The essence of this path is learning to live from the truths of the heart, especially when those truths seem to defy linear, step-by-step reasoning.
Which they often do.
They often do. Logic and reasoning, they have immense usefulness. They're magnificent tools for building, calculating, solving problems. They are vital servants.
Vital servants.
But they must never, ever become the master. Not when you're determining your core life choices, your deepest values, or the actions that define your purpose.
So the heart holds the deeper wisdom, the non-negotiable stuff.
Exactly. The heart knows.
Yeah.
The mind is there to help figure out how to implement it. So if logic tells you, stay in this comfortable job, it makes sense, but your heart feels like it's, draining your soul.
You choose the heart.
You choose the heart every time.
This really sounds like a direct evolutionary path we're on. One that needs us to shed some old, established ways of thinking.
Definitely.
And our sources, they frame this process as an emergence, right? From a specific unconscious system, the patriarchal system.
Yes, exactly. The current spiritual path, the one you listening are likely walking, is explicitly described in these texts as an awakening from an unconscious patriarchal system.
And what defines that system, according to these sources?
Well, it's defined by competition, by win-lose dynamics, scarcity thinking, dominance, seeking personal success, even if it means, frankly, stepping over others to get it.
Sounds familiar.
It does, doesn't it? And this mindset, these sources explain, it generates immense, often generational, unresolved pain.
Why?
Yeah.
Because it forces us to cut off parts of ourselves.
Precisely. Our softness, our vulnerability, our compassion. You have to numb those things just to function, just to survive within those kinds of constraints.
Yeah.
So the awakening is this mass reconnection and also a release of all that hidden trauma.
Okay, so if the trauma is stored within us from operating under this old system,
Yeah.
how do we even begin to figure out what's true for us versus what's just a programmed response?
Yeah.
Where's the reliable compass in all that?
The reliable compass is the body. Using the body as a truth sensor.
The body.
Yeah, the awakening process requires bringing the body fully into consciousness. The mind, it can be easily fooled, convinced by clever arguments or shiny appearances.
Sure.
But the body knows a lie from what is real that has this uncanny accuracy. It registers falsehood as like tension or contraction or even nausea sometimes.
And truth feels different.
Truth feels like expansion or warmth or relaxation, ease.
But here's a tricky point people often raise. What if someone experiences chronic anxiety or panic attacks? How do they tell the difference between the body registering a genuine lie or threat versus just reacting out of fear or past trauma? That gets confusing.
That is a critical question. And the distinction is made not by analyzing, but by meeting the physical response with compassion instead of trying to shut it down or figure it out immediately.
You just feel it with kindness.
Yes. The body's intelligence, it's described here almost like an unerringly accurate animal. It's always communicating. But if the mind jumps in trying to control it or interpret it logically, I shouldn't feel this way or this panic is totally irrational, that interference creates the confusion.
Okay.
So the practice is to open up to whatever the bodily response is, however confusing or difficult it feels, and meet it with acceptance. You treat the panic, say, as a signal that's demanding your presence, your compassionate attention.
And that allows the deeper truth behind the panic to surface.
Exactly. It forces the mind to step down from being the master and become, instead, a compassionate witness.
So radical honesty with the body leads to radical honesty with the self. That makes sense. But following that sovereign inner truth, when the whole culture seems to operate on fear, logic, and just fitting in, that sounds incredibly lonely sometimes.
It absolutely can be.
Which leads us right to this idea of the path of the outsider.
It does. And the sources, they don't sugarcoat this part. It's an internal challenge. When you commit to moving towards that heart-based sovereignty, you are essentially, as one text puts it, becoming sane in an insane world.
Wow.
And you will find yourself feeling profoundly misfit in typical cultural situations. The corporate ladder, maybe conventional socializing, even some family dynamics, because your inner compass is pointing in a direction the collective hasn't quite caught up to yet.
So you feel alienated. But the purpose isn't just to retreat into a cave somewhere.
No, not at all. The purpose of feeling like an outsider is actually to stand out. It's a sovereign demonstration.
A demonstration of what?
Of a different way. By choosing compassion over competition, maybe, or choosing your inner value over some superficial marker of success, you demonstrate that a preferable way of being isn't just some nice idea, it's actually superior, it's sustainable.
So you become a living beacon.
A living beacon, exactly. For others who are just starting their own emergence, feeling their own misfitness, it's a heavy mantle, perhaps, but the sources say it's essential for the collective shift.
That transition, though, from feeling isolated and weird to being a beacon, that sounds like it requires enormous strength. Is there any kind of spiritual scaffolding mentioned for undertaking such a demanding task?
Absolutely. There's explicit reassurance about divine helpers and also about the nature of the tasks we take on.
Yep.
The sources say that the most powerful, most evolved beings in the universe act as helpers and guides, always available. And if you're experiencing exceptional challenge, it's often simply because, large souls take on large tasks.
So the difficulty isn't punishment.
Not at all. It's proportional to the magnitude of the integration that's required of you. The challenge is never a lack of support. The support is constant. The challenge lies in the necessity of doing the inner work, finding the courage to integrate profound change while staying true to yourself, especially during difficult moments.
The support is there, but the integration is personal.
It's entirely personal, yes.
Okay, let's transition now into some of the specific Daughters of Goddess, these archetypes who embody and guide these principles of power we've been talking about.
Great.
And it makes perfect sense, really, that we begin with Saraswati. She embodies manifesting through the word or sound. If the goal is to stand out and declare a new way, well, we need a mechanism for sovereign creation, right?
Precisely. Saraswati is the ancient Vedic goddess of sound, healing, and wisdom. And her power is truly primordial. She is the sheer creative force of consciousness itself.
Wow. Primordial.
Yeah. She is the one who issues the word, and entire worlds are literally formed according to her intent. Her power is absolute in that vibrational sense. Her every sound can lead to worlds ending and being instantly reborn. She literally weaves the fabric of reality through vibration and intent.
That connects the feminine principle directly to the most fundamental creative force vibration itself. Yeah. So for someone listening today, how does invoking Saraswati or embodying her principle, How did that translate into practical, tangible manifestation?
Well, since manifestation starts with the vibrational power of the word, it means taking radical ownership of your language, your speech.
Okay.
Saraswati's affinity is often with musicians, dancers, writers, anyone moved by sound or mantra or conscious language. But it applies to everyone. If you consistently say, I am always struggling, then your reality must arrange itself to reflect that vibration. It has no choice.
So working with Saraswati is about choosing your words consciously.
Exactly. Consciously choosing high-frequency words that align with the value structure of your heart. Not just positive thinking, but vibrational alignment. It requires the precision of a poet, maybe, and the intentionality of a mystic. Mantras, of course, are condensed sound forms of her power tools for rapid vibrational realignment.
And her power, this creation through sound, it's tied to the spiral geometry of the universe, symbolized by the ammonite fossil.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that connection, because it feels like an anchor.
It is an anchor, a very important one. It helps ground this immense power of creation. The ammonite symbolizes that perfect spiral formation that underpins all creation.
You mean like in...
It's the structure replicated in our DNA and the energy flow of our chakras, even in the vastness of the Milky Way galaxy. This spiral is the natural movement of life force.
Okay.
So when we invoke Saraswati, we're activating this flow. Now, if a person tends to, say, rush headfirst into situations maybe driven by anxiety or just unexamined willpower.
Yeah, that happens.
The ammonite helps ground their energy. It brings that frantic, linear pace back into the natural, harmonious rhythm of the creation spiral. It shows that true creation is expansive and flowing, not forced or rigid.
That really shifts the energy, doesn't it? From frantic effort to something more like elegant, structured flow.
Exactly. Elegant flow.
Now, if Saraswati is the word, the vibration, let's move to Sophia. She embodies pure intellect and being, the goddess of wisdom and regeneration.
Ah, Sophia. She is incredibly relevant for our time. The sources explicitly call her the goddess for our time.
Where are you to now specifically?
Because she represents the treasury of creation, the keeper of universal memory, and she's the mistress of fierce compassion. Her core concern is the immediate survival, the maturation of all creation, connecting all the scattered aspects of life, enlivening dormant consciousness.
And the sources link her return to challenges with traditional religious structures.
Yes. They highlight that while the concept of a singular, often unquestioned male god has dominated Western thought, the complementary goddess concept, Sophia, has been systematically ignored or erased. Her return, this resurgence of the divine feminine, is seen as triggering the upsurge of creative spirituality needed now. Needed to sweep away outworn dogmas and reconnect humanity to its own inherent divine value.
Her task sounds
And
essential. Regeneration and resacralization of the universe. That's huge.
It is huge. Her central task is the regeneration and resacralization of everything, returning sacredness to what has been rendered mundane or profane. And it's often likened to the ancient Egyptian quest of Isis.
Ah, searching for Osiris.
Exactly. Just as Isis searched for the scattered fragments of her murdered husband Osiris, Sophia is seen as seeking the scattered fragments of wisdom, truth, and heart-based value that have been blown about and fractured in our modern world.
So every time one of us commits to our own inner truth, operates from our value, we're participating in that.
You are participating in the re-embodiment of Sophia on Earth.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, if she's rebuilding wisdom, we need practical tools. You mentioned the 7 pillars of wisdom. How do these translate into actionable steps for someone trying to live more consciously today?
Right, the 7 pillars. They're presented as these 7 practical supportive acts needed to rebuild wisdom's temple, both within ourselves and in the world. Instead of just listing all 7, let's focus on maybe the most applicable ones right now.
Okay.
First, there's turning folly into wisdom. This isn't just correcting mistakes. It's deeply recognizing that every failure, every folly, is actually raw data for profound insight, nothing wasted.
Okay, learn from everything. What else?
Second, meeting incomprehension with understanding. And this isn't just intellectual grasping. It's about standing with someone or with a difficult situation in a state of deep, compassionate presence until the underlying truth reveals itself. Patience and presence.
I like that. Not forcing understanding.
Exactly. And third, countering spiritual disease and desacralization with profound respect and compassion. Actively looking for and seeing the divine spark in all things, especially those things that appear broken, mundane, or even ugly.
So it's a holistic approach.
Yeah.
Healing ourselves as we heal the world.
Precisely. It's all interconnected.
Okay, moving from Sophia's grand, encompassing wisdom, let's focus that energy into pure action with Isis. She's defined by resourcefulness, sheer determination.
Yes, Isis is presented as a divine feminine ascended master teacher. Her specialty is described as oracular activism.
Oracular activism. What's that?
Using divine foresight, intuition, that inner knowing to fuel practical, courageous action in the world. And she's noted as a fierce advocate for Mother Earth.
Okay.
She embodies resourcefulness, strength, and the kind of inspiration that makes the impossible suddenly seem, well, maybe just really difficult, but achievable. Her presence, the sources say, is meant to act like a profound whisper, returning the memory of our own divine capacity back to us.
In her myth, the story of Osiris's murder and dismemberment, it's the classic tale of resilience, isn't it? What's the central teaching there for someone facing what feels like absolute loss or defeat?
The mythos of resilience, yes. It focuses on that moment of deepest despair. Isis finds all but one piece of Osiris's body. The phallus, his generative power, was lost forever. Eaten by a fish, the story goes.
Right. Seems hopeless.
Completely. But instead of collapsing into victimhood, she exercised divine resourcefulness, pure Isis energy. She fashioned a new phallus from gold and wax, used her magic, took the form of a falcon, and literally blew the breath of life back into his body.
Just long enough.
Just long enough to conceive their son, Horus, who then goes on to avenge his father and restore order.
That is determination defined. But you mentioned something that seems contradictory. Her teaching insists we must not give up, but also not be attached to the outcome. How do you hold both of those things at the same time? That sounds tricky.
It is tricky, and that tension is the core teaching. Determination, in this feminine sense, is about passionate, loving interaction with your current reality, fully engaging.
Okay.
Attachment, though, is trying to control the future based on the needs and fears of the ego. What Isis teaches is that love will always find a way. But
the way might look totally different than you planned.
exactly. The way may not look like your initial plan at all. We must commit fully to the action, fashioning the gold phallus, blowing the breath of life, but accept that the outcome might be an entirely new magical conception, like Horus, rather than the perfect restoration of the past, like getting Osiris back exactly as he was.
So if things seem to be going pear-shaped, as the source put it,
You pivot, you innovate, you keep engaging with life, with the fractured reality until the magic happens. She triumphed over jealousy, evil, and death, not by wishing things were different, but by constantly re-engaging with what was, with fierce love and resourcefulness.
Okay, our next set of archetypes seems to focus on specific stages of inner growth, the path towards mastery. Let's start with Persephone. She embodies manifesting through maturity, and specifically this concept called the virgin principle.
Yes, and this is a concept we absolutely must redefine thoroughly.
Why? What's a common misunderstanding?
The popular understanding of virgin implies retreat, lack of experience, maybe naivete, or even prudishness. But in this psychological context, the virgin principle is about inherent integrity and sovereignty, wholeness unto oneself.
So it's not about pulling back from life.
No, quite the opposite. The virgin aspect of the psyche does not pull back from experiences, whether they're sexual, traumatic, difficult, or joyful. It's the part of us that's capable of sustaining deep, honest connection with all of life.
While retaining what?
While retaining a fundamental, unchangeable core of purity and innocence.
So innocence here means internal integrity, not external ignorance or a lack of experience.
Precisely. It's a purity that no external experience, no shame, no guilt, no trauma can ultimately change or corrupt at its deepest level. Persephone's own transformation illustrates this perfectly.
From Kor, the sheltered maiden.
Right, the hidden daughter, Kor, to becoming the queen of the underworld, ruling the souls of the dead. Her power lies in her cyclical journey, her seasonal ability to thrive through life, descent into darkness, and eventual return. She embodies growth through darkness, not by avoiding it.
Okay, but the pivotal event in her myth is her abduction by Hades. That's usually framed through a lens of violation, of trauma. Why do these sources redefine Hades as the liberating force? That feels like a huge psychological claim. Needs careful explanation.
It is a sensitive point, definitely, but it's presented as an essential reframing for understanding this archetype. Hades, in this view, is the force that breaks the hold of an unhealthy, smothering, fear-based mother energy.
Not necessarily a literal mother.
Not necessarily literal, no. It's often our own internal consciousness, that voice that tells us, stay small, stay safe, keep your head down, don't rock the boat, never venture into the uncomfortable unknown. This internal cycle prevents true maturity.
So the abduction, the descent,
Yeah.
it's a necessary disruption.
It's the necessary, often painful upheaval that forces the individual to confront their shadow, integrate the darkness, and claim their own power. Hades pulls Corey out of dependency into sovereignty.
It might sound liberating in hindsight looking back, but in the moment, abduction, being dragged somewhere unknown, that's painful, confusing upheaval. How do the sources suggest framing that disruption while we're actually in it?
The key recognition is that the pain of the descent is often proportional to the level of repression or stuckness that came before it. The more we are clinging to that dysfunctional, unchanging, fear-based energy.
The more forceful the change agent needs to be.
Exactly. The more abrupt and forceful Hades, the agent of change will emerge from the shadow to force the necessary awakening. So the advice is to try and recognize that feeling of being torn away, not as arbitrary suffering, but as a divine pressure cooker leading towards inevitable sovereignty.
Because it's only in the underworld.
It's only in the underworld, having faced the darkness, that Persephone gains her crown and becomes queen. She's no longer merely the dependent daughter. The path of maturity, this archetype teaches, is often the path of forced self-possession.
That brings profound context to disruptive growth.
Okay.
Next, we encounter Durga, manifesting through genius, embodying fierce compassion. This sounds like another form of necessary intensity.
Yes. Durga, often depicted with many arms and called the Divine Mother, represents the power to utilize energy for constructive, though sometimes painful transformation. Her consciousness is pure tough love. Fierce grace.
When is she invoked? Or when does her energy show up?
She is invoked, or her energy arises, when illusion or ego resistance is so strong, so entrenched, that only a direct, powerful confrontation will actually break through.
Tough love often feels like a trial by fire when you're going through it. What does this process of being put through one's paces, as the sources say, actually feel like?
Yeah.
And why call it genius?
It feels like intense, focused pressure, like everything that is not authentic is being systematically stripped away. Psychologically, a Durga initiation might manifest as a period where every comfortable external support just disappears, forcing you to find a strength you didn't even know you possess.
And the genius is part.
It's categorized as genius because the energy, while intense, is perfectly calibrated. It's designed to achieve maximum transformation with minimal collateral damage to the soul's core essence. Think of the precision of a diamond cutter polishing a raw gem.
Okay. Difficult process, beautiful result.
Difficult, sometimes agonizing, yes, but the result is profound soul liberation. The absolute key, though, is unconditional trust. Trust that the process, however rough, is serving your highest good, even when your ego is screaming and resisting it desperately.
And to manage that intensity, she's associated with hematite.
Yes, hematite is key for grounding this powerful, often fiery energy. It's said to increase energy in the belly, helping us draw that primal, stabilizing power up from the earth.
But it also balances yin.
Crucially, yes, it balances the yin energy, the cooling, receptive, feminine aspect. Durga's transformation can be explosive, generating massive internal heat, metaphorically speaking. Hematite allows one to channel that strength and intensity while simultaneously remaining receptive and surrendered to the divine plan unfolding. It ensures you can be strong and open at the same time, maintaining your center during the chaos of transformation.
Strong and surrendered, okay. Our final archetype in this growth section is Bastet, embodying pure freedom and dignity. After all that intense pressure from Durga and Persephone's descent, we probably need a reminder of sovereign ease.
Bastet is absolutely that breath of fresh air. Her defining characteristics are freedom, independence, and just this innate, unconditional self-regard.
Self-regard. How does that manifest?
Her energy simply expects to be treated with high regard. She does whatever she wants, really, irrespective of others' desires to control her or make her fit into some preconceived box. She's the epitome of the cat spirit, dignified, playful, independent, utterly sovereign.
Like the cat sitting on the counter ignoring you?
Exactly. Cats are sacred to her, of course. And she also presides over dance, music, joy, often symbolized by the sistrum, a kind of sacred rattle used in ancient Egypt.
The sources say accessing this specific energy of dignity is utterly essential for healing the human spirit in modern culture. Why such strong emphasis?
Because, let's face it, for many people, the default mode of survival in modern culture involves subtle or not so subtle degradation. Fitting in, towing the line, swallowing disrespect, maybe even humiliating oneself just to be accepted or get ahead.
Yeah, playing the game.
Right. Basset's spirit refuses this erosion of self. Accessing her dignity means establishing non-negotiable boundaries around your time, your energy, your values. It allows the individual male or female to live with grace and self-respect, even when the surrounding culture doesn't support it.
So embodying her becomes an act of resistance.
And inspiration. You become an inspiring, uplifting human being simply through the sheer act of refusing to be diminished or degraded by external demands or expectations. If you struggle with control issues or people-pleasing, Bastet is the energy that reminds you. Your fundamental dignity is absolutely non-negotiable, period.
We've discussed these magnificent archetypes of light, sovereignty, dignity, but these sources are refreshingly honest, aren't they? They emphasize that the journey often begins, or at least must pass through, the messiest, darkest parts of ourselves. We have to address the shadow.
Absolutely. We can't talk about the light without understanding the darkness. And often the darkness dictates where we must start our inner work. Which brings us to the Black Goddess and the hidden treasures.
Who is this Black Goddess? Sometimes called Sophia Nigrans. And why does our search for spiritual knowledge often start with her, in the dark?
The Black Goddess isn't necessarily a specific deity in the way we usually think of them. She's more the metaphorical appearance of the goddess in matter itself. In the fertile, physical, earthy, and often hidden or unconscious realms. She's called Sophia Nigrans, which means black wisdom. Or the veiled goddess, the outcast daughter, the dark woman of knowledge.
Why black or dark?
Her image appears across countless traditions because true spiritual knowledge often lies buried in the darkness of the unknown, the unconscious, the body, the earth. Our search for the goddess, for deeper truth, often begins in moments of profound darkness, loss, grief, confusion, unknowing, when our previous structures and understandings have completely failed us.
So the darkness isn't a place of punishment or failure. It's more like fertile ground.
Exactly. It's the womb of healing. The sources emphasize that the true treasures of the divine feminine lie deep within us, waiting to be discovered, precisely in this darkness. This is the space where deep inner healing occurs, where we can finally confront and process emotions and experiences that were maybe too overwhelming to handle consciously in our everyday waking life.
So it's a space of rest almost, recovery.
Deep inner rest and recovery, yes. Before the next stage of light and action can truly begin, you have to surrender to the darkness, allow yourself to be held by it, to find the gold it holds within it.
Okay, let's talk about working with difficult emotions then, because that's often what we find in the dark. Specifically rage. This is an energy most people are told to suppress, control, get rid of entirely.
Yes, and suppressing rage just bottles up immense constructive power. Rage definitely contains destructive aspects, no question. But the sources say when it is honored and contained.
Honored and contained. What does that mean practically?
Honored means acknowledging its presence and its message without judgment. Contained means feeling it fully internally in the body, but not dumping it, directing it, or projecting it onto others. When held this way,
Transforms.
it becomes a useful, even volcanic source of energy for radical change. It's the raw power needed to tear down an unjust structure in your life or sever a toxic tie cleanly.
But how do we contain something so explosive without suppressing it? That sounds like the psychological trick.
It requires being absolutely centered in your heart, your core, compassionate self, while allowing the raw energy of rage to be felt fully in the body. And because this energy is so explosive, the sources actually suggest calling upon higher beings for help, like Sekhmet.
The Egyptian lioness goddess, war and healing.
Exactly. She is seen as capable of dealing with that level of sheer intensity. Sekhmet can act as a loving, fierce container, holding the furious energy, allowing it to transform safely from destructive fury into pure, clean fuel for decisive, constructive action in the world.
Okay, what about those other dark moments? The really uncomfortable, almost shameful ones we might feel sometimes.
Yeah.
Like that fleeting desire for someone who has hurt us deeply to actually suffer. We're taught to be compassionate, but these feelings still surface.
Ah, yes. This is addressed through the concept of the shadow Hera. Hera, in Greek myth, known for her jealousy and rage towards Zeus's lovers.
Okay.
The key here is about emotional hygiene. It's critical to witness these intensely personal, dark moments, like that desire for retribution as a passing darkness.
Passing darkness.
Yeah.
Not who I am.
Exactly. You look at the feeling directly. Okay, I see that desire for them to suffer. You have compassion for the part of your being that is wounded and reacting that way. But you consciously affirm that this feeling, this shadow, is not your fundamental, essential self.
So you acknowledge it, but don't identify with it or act on it.
Precisely. You acknowledge the feeling, witness it without judgment, but you prevent it from defining you, consuming you, or directing your actions. This witnessing allows the shadow energy to simply dissipate without polluting your core compassionate identity.
That sounds like a real discipline, a long-term practice. Now, Kali's intensity. This feels like something far less contained, maybe, than Sekhmet holding rage or witnessing Hera's shadow.
Kali's intensity is often described, as using a spiritual sledgehammer, where maybe a chisel might do. Her energy is profoundly disturbing, intense, often terrifying to the ego.
Why invoke her, then?
Because her energy is precisely aimed at total soul liberation and the most profound transformation possible. You invoke Kali, or her energy arises, when something simply must be utterly destroyed, a core pattern of self-sabotage that just won't budge, an old false identity. Maybe a whole life built on lies.
That sounds intense.
It is. Working with her requires absolute, unconditional trust. Trust in the purity of your divine connection and trust in the necessity of the destruction, even when the experience is agonizing. Because the ego is literally losing everything it thought defined its existence.
So you need a strong heart connection.
A heart connection stronger than the ego's grip is essential to navigate that process without shattering.
Okay, finally, we move from that destructive intensity to something delightfully different. Matangi, manifesting through genius via quirkiness.
Yes, Matangi, often called the rebel goddess or the outcast goddess, she is essential for reintegration after the deep shadow work.
How does she work?
Through quirkiness. She manifests through quirkiness by calling on the spontaneity, the grace, the sheer randomness of a cosmic clown almost. When you embody Matangi, you stop taking yourself and life quite so seriously. You start following those random, delightful inner promptings that might seem utterly illogical or weird to the rational mind.
Like doing something totally unexpected just because it feels right.
Exactly. She helps integrate the parts of the shadow that feel maybe too rebellious, too strange, too out there. She helps us recognize that our individual peculiarities, our quirks, are actually vital expressions of our own unique divinity. She invites us to be totally present and available to the unconventional, spontaneous intelligence of the universe, to play again.
This whole journey has led us through discovering inner value, finding determination, navigating dissent, working with the shadow, accepting our quirks. Now, let's translate that inner alignment into the practical mechanics of creation. How does it actually work? The sources draw a really sharp line between manifesting through grace versus manifesting through will.
Yes, and this is a fundamental feminine teaching, really core to understanding this energy. Manifestation ceases to be about forcing outcomes through sheer linear willpower, which is often associated more with the masculine approach.
Pushing, striving, making it happen.
Right. Instead, it becomes an act of grace, an effortless flow. It happens by allowing divine love, which the sources describe as the natural creative essence of the universe, to simply flow through us.
Or like being a channel.
Exactly. Think of that divine love as the ultimate fuel that lights your creative fire, or perhaps the skilled, gentle hand that molds the clay of reality through you. And this transition from forcing to flowing, it's achieved not through more external effort,
But through inner work.
through intense inner clearing, self-acceptance, and developing deep compassion for yourself, including all those shadow parts we just talked about.
Okay. This approach often brings us to the archetype of abundance, Lakshmi. But she sounds different from just, a cosmic ATM. The sources suggest she's like a master psychological healer who addresses the deepest inner wounds first.
That's exactly right. A perfect description. When we call on Lakshmi for abundance, and that could be money, yes, but also love, opportunity, health, creativity.
Okay.
She acts with immense grace. But her first move is often to resolve the internal blocks to receiving. So if your desire for blessings, whatever they are, is actually coming from a place of trying to compensate for that deep-seated, not good enough wound,
Which it often is.
which it so often is, her blessing will be directed towards resolving that core unworthiness first, before she delivers the next level of material or external grace.
Why does she hold back the material stuff, though, if you're asking for it?
Because if the abundance, the money, the relationship, the success arrived, while that not good enough wound was still raw and active, what would likely happen?
Self-sabotage. Fear. Pushing it away.
Massive self-sabotage, resistance, fear of having it, fear of losing it, because deep down you'd still feel unworthy of it. So Lakshmi, out of grace, holds back temporarily. She refuses to give the ego more fuel for its struggle.
So what does she require from us then?
She only really has access, the sources say, to the heart that dwells in love, which means acceptance. Surrender to the divine plan, even when the sequencing of events like healing the wound before getting the thing lacks linear logical sense to our minds. She heals the root cause of scarcity first, which is internal.
That makes sense. Okay, moving to another manifestation technique mentioned, Pele and the power of yearning. This sounds counterintuitive. Why is longing, or that feeling of inner emptiness, considered an asset rather than a sign of failure or lack?
Right. We usually think emptiness is bad, but manifesting through longing or yearning taps into what one source calls an inbuilt emergency function.
An emergency function.
Yeah. This inner emptiness, this profound yearning we sometimes feel, it's described as being specifically designed to prevent us from getting totally lost or distracted by the temporary satisfactions of the physical world.
So it pulls us deeper.
It forces us deeper. It compels us to seek the completeness of divinity within. That emptiness is never, ever a sign of failure. It is the perfect means by which we create a vast, hollow space inside, ready to receive divine grace, like carving out a bowl to be filled.
And Pele, the Hawaiian goddess of the volcano, she embodies this, associated with lava stone.
Yes, Pele represents that holy fire, that passionate desire, that deep yearning that motivates movement, creation, and growth. It's powerful energy. And lava stone, interestingly, is associated with her. It carries that fire energy, but it's also used metaphysically for cooling and balancing excessive heat like anger or burnout.
So it helps channel the passion.
It helps ensure that the passion, that inner fire of yearning, is channeled constructively into forward movement and creation, rather than destructively into burnout, frustration, or rage. Balance again.
Okay. Finally, the ultimate sovereignty in creation seems to come through the intentional use of our voice sovereignty and the creative word.
Yes. This circles back to Saraswati, but maybe in a more conscious, deliberate way. Consciously activating the throat chakra, the energy center of voice and expression, makes you acutely aware of your sovereign power to literally create reality through your speech.
This goes beyond just positive affirmations, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, much deeper. It's about absolute faith in the vibrational power of your uttered intent. We must choose our words meticulously, consciously, because the universe, which is presented as the ultimate co-creator, it has no choice, magnetize and arrange reality according to how we have spelled it out, literally casting a spell with our words.
Wow. That's a big responsibility.
Huge.
And how do we ensure we spell it out correctly if we're not supposed to rely on that linear A to B logic we talked about earlier?
The process is inherently guided by intuition, not logic. The divine, working through your intuition, directs you to what will actually work for your unique sacred purpose. And that path might look completely random, diagonal, or spiraling to the logical mind.
So trust the gut feeling, the random prompt.
Exactly. Intuition tells you the right words to use, the right time to speak them, the right action to take, often completely bypassing logical expectation. The feminine principle trusts the spiral, the nudge, the synchronicity over the straight line of human reasoning. #, outro.
Wow. This deep dive has really woven together a profound tapestry, hasn't it? Revealing the divine feminine not as some passive receptive ideal, but as a truly proactive sovereign principle.
Yeah, an embodied value system based on radical honesty with the body, fierce compassion even for the hard stuff, and intentional sovereign creative power.
And we've seen her manifested through such diverse, powerful archetypes, from Saraswati's primordial sound and the spiral of creation,
to Isis's sheer unwavering determination and resourcefulness.
and Persephone's profound maturity, gained only through that necessary descent into darkness.
And the final, absolutely critical step in this entire journey, according to these sources, is acceptance. Specifically, the acceptance of our own inherent, untouchable innocence.
Which requires the final step of acceptance and forgiveness, releasing the past's control over us.
Exactly. And forgiveness in this context isn't necessarily about condoning harmful actions. It's simply the willingness to stop retelling the painful story, to stop re-injuring ourselves with it, and to free the self from the prison of past choices or external actions done by others.
We see this illustrated beautifully in the story of the White Buffalo Woman, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. The White Buffalo Woman prophecy is such a potent example of embodying this return to innocence. Remember, after fulfilling her duties, teaching the sacred ways, she turned black, red, yellow, and finally white, honoring the 4 directions.
And then her spirit was set free.
Her spirit was set free from physical form to radiate light, peace, and the promise of renewal across the Great Plains. It symbolizes the covenant of peace and reconnection with all of life that is achieved only when we shed the illusion of our brokenness, our separation.
So forgiveness of self and others is the willingness to step back into that original state.
Your original state of innocence. a core purity that the sources insist, can never truly be changed or diminished by any human experience, no matter how difficult.
What stands out to me most powerfully from everything we've discussed is that core tension, that the journey to embodying the divine feminine requires not perfection, not impenetrability, but profound vulnerability.
Yes, yes.
It feels like we were actually designed to experience our sovereign divinity not by transcending our human messiness,
Right.
but through the very vulnerability of our human experience.
Indeed. That vulnerability, that willingness to face the darkness, the wounds, the imperfections, that is the gateway to grace. And that leads us directly to our final, perhaps provocative, closing thought for you to carry forward. There's a deep form of compassion, sometimes called karuna compassion in Eastern traditions. It's defined as loving what you believe is unlovable or unforgivable.
Loving the unlovable.
Within yourself first. So the question to ponder is this. What unlovable or unforgivable part of yourself, that passing darkness we talked about, that hidden wound, that perceived failure, that quirk you judge, what part are you now ready to embrace with fierce, unwavering compassion? Ready to bring into the light of your own love?
Because embracing that.
Because embracing that, the sources suggest, is precisely what unlocks the next level of grace and allows you to step fully into your grounded, embodied sovereignty. That inner embrace is the key.